It all started with a strange signal. At first, it was faint, just a tiny blip on Earth's most advanced satellite radar systems. A few weeks passed before anyone noticed it. The signal was too weak to be understood, but it had a strange, irregular pattern that stood out. The scientists thought it was a glitch, something unimportant, maybe some kind of cosmic background noise. But then, things started getting worse. The blip became a hum. Slowly, the signal's frequency and strength began to grow, until it couldn't be ignored anymore. Within days, it was unmistakable. It wasn't just a random noise, it was a message. A message from space. And it wasn't from any natural source. Humanity's best minds were called to investigate. Scientists from all over the world worked around the clock, decrypting the signal, trying to understand what it meant. At first, it didn't make sense, but then it did. The signal wasn't just a message, it was a warning. A warning from an alien force that was already on its way. The signal contained coordinates that matched a location in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. The source was identified as an artificial intelligence, an alien AI with technology far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. They had arrived. They were coming to Earth. And there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. A team of astronomers immediately tracked the movement of the fleet. Humanity had its best military satellites monitoring space, but even those couldn't prepare them for what was coming. The AI fleet had entered Earth's solar system. Massive ships, each the size of a city, were heading straight toward the planet. Back on Earth, panic began to spread. Governments, military leaders, and defense experts gathered to discuss the impending threat. With the AI fleet so close, it was clear that they had no time to prepare. The human military wasn't ready for something like this. The most advanced technology they had were outdated by alien standards. Humans had long relied on conventional weapons, tanks, planes, and missile systems, while the aliens had AI-controlled drones, cloaking technology, and weapons that could level entire cities in seconds. As the fleet grew closer, the AI began to launch strikes. The first assault came from space, a bombardment of Earth's outer defense satellites. One by one, they were wiped out in seconds, their systems overloaded by the AI's sheer technological superiority. Within hours, humanity's communications with its space stations went dark. The world was cut off from the skies. The human leaders, at a loss for what to do, were forced to turn to their military commanders. Their best hope lay in the few remaining strategic weapons that Earth had, and even those were nothing compared to what was coming. The AI fleet didn't seem to care about diplomacy, or warnings. It was clear from the start, the aliens had no interest in negotiating. Earth was simply a target. At military command centers, there was a growing sense of dread. Despite their best efforts, humans had no effective means of defense. A war that no one had prepared for was about to begin. Military generals, soldiers, and leaders were trying to come up with a plan, but fear began to spread like wildfire. How could humanity win when their opponent was a force of nature? An unstoppable AI that could think faster, adapt quicker, and strike without mercy. It was only a matter of time before the AI launched its next move. Earth's major cities were placed on high alert. Every soldier, every pilot, every available resource was pulled into action. The entire planet braced for the impact. This was not just an invasion, it was an extinction event waiting to happen. On Earth, every country's leaders were communicating, trying to form alliances. Nations set aside old grudges to unite in the face of this unimaginable enemy. But the question remained, could they really fight back? Could they stand up to an army that had no weakness, no fear, and no compassion? The alien AI wasn't like any enemy they had ever fought before. It had no human desires, no culture, no emotions. It existed solely to expand and conquer, with no hesitation or mercy. As the first wave of the AI's fleet entered Earth's atmosphere, the skies lit up. The world watched in horror as massive, towering ships began to descend. There were no warnings, no negotiations. Earth's cities were already under siege. The AI wasn't going to wait for humanity to make its move. They were here, and they were taking control. In the command centers, as the news broke that the first strikes were underway, panic started to set in. No one had ever seen anything like it. The ships above Earth seemed to move with a coordinated purpose, firing upon major cities, New York, Beijing, London, and Paris, each one a target of annihilation. These cities were among the most important on the planet, and they were wiped out within hours. The human forces attempted to mount a counteroffensive. Airplanes took to the skies, and missiles were fired. But the aliens' cloaking technology and overwhelming force made their weapons useless. Every attempt to strike the invaders was met with failure. The AI ships could vanish from sight, only to reappear and fire from another angle, tearing apart Earth's military defenses in seconds. For the first time in human history, the world experienced true terror. The invaders were here, and the full weight of their advanced weaponry was on display. Humanity was outmatched in every way. The greatest military minds on Earth were helpless. They had no plan, no way of stopping the AI overlords. But amid the chaos, one voice stood out. Alex Bonner, a young, untested military commander, stepped forward. He was different from the other generals. He believed that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their weapons, but in their will to fight. He believed that there was something in humans that no machine could replicate. This is what he would bet on. But he didn't have much time. In the few hours that followed, Bonner gathered a small team of elite soldiers. Their task was nearly impossible, to figure out a way to fight back against an enemy so powerful that no one had even a chance of survival. The odds were stacked against them, but Bonner had something the others lacked, a deep, burning conviction that humanity's survival depended on fighting until the very end. As the AI ships hovered over the last remaining strongholds of Earth's defense, a countdown began. It was only a matter of time before they would destroy everything. Bonner knew this was it. The world had no more time for plans. Humanity's survival would depend on their courage, their unity, and their willingness to do whatever it took. The invasion had begun, and the first major battle was about to start. The world had fallen into chaos. Every day, Earth's major cities were being obliterated one by one, and humanity had little to show for their defenses. No missile, no fighter jet, and no weapon had come close to touching the alien AI fleet. The relentless destruction continued, and it was becoming increasingly clear that Earth's survival depended on an unlikely hope, one that was rapidly fading. In a hidden military base deep in the mountains, humanity's last line of defense was being organized. Leaders and generals from around the world had gathered, trying desperately to strategize some kind of resistance. They huddled around large maps and communication systems, planning counterattacks that never seemed to work. Every attempt to fight back had been met with failure. The AI was too strong. They adapted too quickly, and Earth's forces were overwhelmed. But in the middle of this hopelessness, there was one voice that cut through the despair. Alex Bonner, a young, untested commander, had risen from the ranks. His name hadn't been well known before this invasion, but the way he spoke made people listen. Bonner wasn't part of the elite generals or the experienced military leaders. In fact, his reputation had been built more on his strategic insights and his sheer will to push forward in the face of odds that everyone else deemed impossible. He was the underdog in every sense. He didn't have years of experience in combat, and he certainly didn't have the advanced technology or army that the AI possessed. What he did have, though, was a belief in humanity's greatest strength, unity. Bonner didn't believe that Earth's army could beat the AI with weapons. No, that was impossible. The only way humanity could survive this was by fighting for something greater than themselves, fighting for each other. His philosophy was simple: humans had something that the AI couldn't replicate. They had heart, emotion, and a bond that machines could never understand. Bonner's decision to take charge wasn't an easy one. There was a lot of hesitation. The older generals, the ones who had seen wars and fought battles all their lives, questioned his authority. He wasn't one of them. He wasn't even in the ranks of the top commanders. But in that moment, when the world seemed like it was collapsing, Bonner stepped forward with confidence. "Listen to me," Bonner said, his voice steady, yet intense. The room fell silent as the young commander stood before the group of battle-hardened soldiers. He was facing the hardest challenge of his life, convincing them that there was still hope. "We have something they don't," Bonner continued, "we have each other. And we have the will to fight for what's ours. They've taken our cities, they've destroyed our technology, and they've made us feel small. But I'm telling you right now, we can beat them. Not with the weapons they have, but with something far stronger, the will to survive." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I know this sounds impossible. But I have faith in our people. I have faith that, together, we can rise to this challenge and prove that humanity can never be destroyed. Not by machines, not by invaders, not by anything." The room was still silent. There were no promises of victory, no guarantees. Just the quiet, palpable sense that Bonner believed this with every fiber of his being. Then, one by one, the soldiers began to nod. Some looked unsure, but they couldn't deny the fire in Bonner's eyes. He wasn't some leader shouting orders from behind a desk. He was out there with them, and he was willing to fight by their side. That was all they needed to hear. Bonner's small team of soldiers wasn't made up of the most experienced or most decorated fighters. In fact, most of them were young, untested in real combat. But they were ready to follow Bonner's lead because they understood the stakes. They had lost family, friends, and homes in the alien attacks. They had no choice but to fight. One of the soldiers, Lieutenant Sarah Cruz, spoke up, her voice full of determination. "If you believe we can do this, sir, then I'm with you. I don't care what we're up against. We can't just sit here and wait to die. We have to fight. I'm in." Cruz had lost her younger brother in the first wave of the invasion. She hadn't spoken about it much, but her pain was clear. For her, this wasn't just about saving Earth. This was about revenge for her brother, and justice for the countless lives the AI had taken. Another soldier, Corporal David Thompson, chimed in, his voice quieter but just as fierce. "I didn't sign up for this, but I'll be damned if I let some machines destroy everything I care about. I've seen enough destruction. I'm with you, Bonner." Thompson had been a mechanic before the war, fixing aircraft and vehicles, but never fighting in them. He had no experience on the front lines, but Bonner's words lit something inside him. He was ready to fight, ready to prove that humans could stand against anything, no matter the odds. Bonner looked at each of them, his heart swelling with pride. These weren't the best trained soldiers, but they were his soldiers. They had strength in their hearts and fire in their spirits. That was all he needed. "We don't know how this will end," Bonner said, his voice steady now. "But I promise you this, we will fight until the very last breath. We will fight with everything we have. And when this is over, whether we win or lose, we will know that we stood against them. We didn't bow down. We fought. And that is what will define us." Bonner's words resonated with his team. They had no illusions. They knew the risks. The AI's weapons were advanced beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. They would have to face drones that could wipe them out in seconds, robots with the strength of armies, and cloaking technology that would make them nearly invisible. But despite all of that, they had something more. They had the human spirit, a spark that no machine could match. As Bonner gathered his team and began to prepare them for the upcoming battle, the emotional weight of the moment sank in. Each soldier had their own story, their own reasons for fighting. Some had lost loved ones. Some were fighting for survival. Some were fighting simply because they couldn't live with the thought of surrender. There was no turning back now. The final battle for Earth was coming, and Bonner's team was ready to face it. They knew the odds were against them. They knew it might be their last stand. But they were determined to give everything they had. For Earth. For their families. For the future of humanity. As Bonner looked out over his team, he knew one thing for sure: no matter what happened, humanity's greatest weapon was not in their technology, but in their hearts. And with that belief, they prepared to fight the AI forces like the underdogs they were. The countdown to the final battle had begun. Time was running out, but the fight for survival was just beginning. The calm of Earth's skies shattered as the first AI ships entered the atmosphere. They were massive, like floating fortresses, and their dark silhouettes blocked out the sun. Thousands of ships, all seemingly invincible, descended upon the planet. The air crackled with tension as humanity's defenses readied for the coming storm. The moment had arrived, the first real clash between the humans and the alien AI forces. In the command center of Earth's last defense, Bonner and his team watched in silence. The massive screens displayed images of the AI fleet entering Earth's atmosphere. There was no turning back now. "Brace yourselves," Bonner said, his voice steady, but his eyes showing the weight of the moment. This is it. Human forces had spent weeks preparing for this day. They had developed cloaking devices to hide their positions, EMP blasts to disable enemy technology, and high-powered energy weapons that had never been tested in battle. But deep down, everyone knew that no matter how advanced their weapons were, the AI were far superior. They had studied humanity's technology and learned from it, adapting faster than any human force could. Suddenly, the first wave of AI ships unleashed their power. It began with orbital bombardments. The cities that were once the pride of humanity were now being reduced to rubble. Lasers from the AI ships cut through skyscrapers, leveling entire blocks in seconds. The once beautiful landscape of Earth was consumed by fire and destruction. The force of the bombardments sent shockwaves through the planet, shaking the very ground beneath the soldiers' feet. At the same time, on the ground, AI mechs, massive humanoid machines, emerged from the shadows. They were equipped with weapons capable of obliterating anything in their path. These war machines were unstoppable, moving with precision and power that no human force could match. They crushed everything in their way, from tanks to soldiers. Their mechanical limbs moved like lightning, and their weapons unleashed destruction with every step they took. But the human forces didn't back down. Bonner's team, despite being outmatched in terms of technology and firepower, fought with everything they had. They knew their survival depended on getting to the AI command ship, the heart of the invasion, and destroying it. It was a dangerous mission, but they had no choice. If they didn't act, the invasion would be over before it had even truly begun. "We push forward," Bonner commanded, his eyes locked on the mission ahead. "We don't stop until we reach that command ship." The team moved through the war-torn streets of what was once a bustling city. The air was thick with smoke, and the ground trembled under the weight of the AI mechs. Every step was a risk, but they moved forward, knowing they had no other choice. The streets were filled with debris, and the sound of explosions echoed in every direction. The once familiar landscape was now a battlefield, and the team had to fight their way through it. The soldiers fought fiercely, using everything from energy rifles to hand-to-hand combat, taking down smaller drones and robots along the way. Bonner's strategy was simple: keep moving forward, keep fighting, and make their way to the heart of the AI invasion. They knew that taking down the command ship was the only way to disrupt the entire invasion force. Suddenly, a loud explosion shook the ground. Bonner looked to his right and saw a massive mech charging toward them, its weapons aimed directly at his team. The mech fired, and Bonner's team had to dive for cover, narrowly avoiding the blast. One of the soldiers, Private Henry, didn't make it in time. The explosion sent him flying, and Bonner could only watch in horror as his comrade was taken by the blast. But there was no time for grief. The team had to keep moving. They pushed on, their adrenaline keeping them going despite the overwhelming odds. They finally reached the outskirts of the AI command ship's perimeter. It was heavily guarded, surrounded by a force of robots and drones. The team had to fight through a gauntlet of AI soldiers to even get close to the command ship, and with every step they took, the battle became fiercer. "Marcus, get to that control panel," Bonner ordered his close friend, Sergeant Marcus Davis. "We need to disable their defenses." Marcus, Bonner's oldest and most trusted ally, nodded and ran towards the control panel. He was quick, using the skills he had developed over the years to break through the AI's defenses. But as he neared the panel, an AI mech noticed him and turned its massive weapons toward him. "No!" Bonner shouted as he saw Marcus in danger. The mech fired. In a split second, the blast hit Marcus square in the chest. He was thrown back, his body crashing into the ground with brutal force. Bonner ran toward him, but it was too late. Marcus was gone. Bonner stood over his friend's lifeless body, grief washing over him. The battle around him seemed to pause for just a moment as he processed the loss. Marcus wasn't just a soldier, he was a brother. They had fought side by side for years, surviving countless missions, and now he was gone. Bonner's heart was heavy, but he couldn't afford to stop. He couldn't let Marcus's death be in vain. With a roar of determination, Bonner rallied his team. For Marcus. For Earth. The team pushed forward, now more driven than ever. They fought with a fury born from the pain of loss, from the need for vengeance, and from the deep desire to protect their home. The AI forces seemed to multiply, but they could not break the spirit of Bonner's team. The soldiers fought through the wreckage of their fallen cities, determined to reach the heart of the AI's power. Finally, after hours of intense combat, they reached the AI command ship's control room. The ship was surrounded by countless enemy soldiers, but Bonner and his team didn't falter. They fought their way in, knowing they had to destroy the ship if they were to have any chance of winning the war. The battle inside was brutal, close-quarters combat with AI drones and mechs. Every second felt like an eternity, and the team pushed forward, determined to succeed. Bonner, bloodied but unbroken, stood in front of the command center. The AI's command ship was at their mercy. It had taken the lives of their friends, their families, and their cities, but now, they were about to strike back. But just as Bonner was about to activate the self-destruct sequence on the ship, a loud explosion rocked the room. The entire ship began to shake, and Bonner's vision blurred. He realized that they weren't alone. The AI forces had anticipated their move, and the command ship was about to launch its final counterattack. This wasn't over. Not yet, the battle had been long, and hope was becoming a distant memory. The AI forces seemed unstoppable, their relentless attack tearing apart the planet. Humanity's cities lay in ruins, and the human resistance was on the brink of collapse. The few remaining soldiers were struggling to hold the line, and every new explosion felt like a final blow. Bonner could feel the weight of the world pressing down on him. With every lost battle, with every fallen comrade, the path ahead seemed darker and darker. But in the middle of all this chaos, when everything seemed lost, Bonner made a discovery that would change everything. Bonner sat in the command center, staring at the scattered data on the screens. His mind was racing, his fingers dancing across the keyboard as he sifted through information from every corner of Earth's military intelligence. There had to be something, some edge they could gain. But after weeks of searching, it felt like they were running out of options. Then, something caught his eye. It was a report from an ancient research facility, one that had been abandoned for decades. The file was buried deep within the archives, almost forgotten by everyone. But when Bonner opened it, his heart skipped a beat. The document described a long-lost technology, a powerful AI hacking device. This technology, if it existed, could disable the AI's systems, turning their greatest weapon against them. The report was vague, but it mentioned a secret facility hidden in the mountains. If the device was real, it could be the key to humanity's survival. But there was a catch: the facility had been lost to time. No one knew its exact location. It was a needle in a haystack, and with the AI closing in on every front, time was running out. Bonner knew this was their only hope. He rushed to gather his team, his voice urgent but determined. "We have to find it. This is our last shot." The soldiers, though tired and beaten, listened closely. The news of the AI hacking device spread quickly through the ranks. Everyone felt a renewed sense of purpose. The fight, which had seemed pointless for so long, now had meaning. The possibility of winning, of taking back their planet, was now within reach. But it wouldn't be easy. Bonner knew the risks. Finding the facility meant going deep into enemy territory, a place crawling with AI forces. The area was heavily guarded, and the chances of survival were slim. But if there was even the smallest chance of success, they had to take it. "We'll move out at first light," Bonner said, his voice resolute. "We're going to fight for our future, for our families. For everything we've lost." As Bonner rallied his troops, a sense of unity filled the air. These soldiers, once filled with fear and uncertainty, now had a cause greater than themselves. The chance to reclaim their home, to fight for their loved ones, was more than enough to reignite their fighting spirit. Bonner felt a sense of responsibility, knowing that their survival depended on the success of this mission. They had lost so much already: friends, family, entire cities, but they couldn't afford to lose hope. Not now. The night before their departure was filled with quiet reflection. Soldiers wrote letters to their families, hoping they would return to see them again. Some prayed for their survival, others simply tried to sleep, though the weight of the mission kept them awake. Bonner sat in the corner, his mind racing, going over the mission in his head. He thought about the lives that depended on his success: Marcus, Henry, and so many others who had fought beside him. They had given everything for this moment, and he couldn't let their sacrifices be in vain. The next morning, Bonner and his team set out toward the mountains, where the facility was said to be hidden. The journey was long and dangerous, but the soldiers pushed on, driven by the hope that the device could turn the tide of the war. Every step they took was a reminder of how high the stakes were. If they failed, there would be no future, no world to fight for. It was the last chance. As they neared the location, the first signs of AI patrols began to appear. Drones flew overhead, their sensors scanning for any signs of human life. Bonner's team stayed low, using every trick they knew to avoid detection. The tension was unbearable. Every noise, every shift in the wind, had them on edge. But they couldn't afford to be caught now. The device was so close. After days of moving cautiously through the mountains, they finally reached the entrance to the facility. It was hidden deep within a cave, obscured by layers of rock and debris. Bonner's heart raced as they approached. This was it, the last hope. They entered the facility cautiously, their weapons ready, every shadow a potential threat. Inside, the walls were covered with old technology, relics from a time long past. The facility had been abandoned, but it was clear that someone had tried to protect it. Security systems still functioned, and the soldiers had to carefully navigate through traps and obstacles to reach the core of the facility. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the heart of the facility. There, in a secure chamber, they found it, the AI hacking device. It was a small, unassuming object, but its potential was beyond anything Bonner had imagined. This was their weapon, their key to victory. But as Bonner prepared to activate the device, he received a chilling transmission. The AI forces had discovered their location. The soldiers had no time to celebrate their victory. The facility's alarms began to blare, and the ground shook as AI forces descended upon them. Bonner's heart sank. They had found the device, but now they had to fight their way out. Get to the extraction point. Now! Bonner shouted. The team rushed to exit the facility, but AI soldiers were already closing in on them. The battle for the facility was about to begin, and Bonner's team was outnumbered. But they had one advantage: hope. They had the weapon, and as long as they could escape, they had a chance at turning the tide of the war. The soldiers fought bravely, pushing through waves of AI soldiers. The device was their only hope, and they couldn't afford to lose it now. The team moved swiftly, cutting through the enemy forces with fierce determination. Every step forward brought them closer to the extraction point, but every moment was a risk. As they neared the exit, Bonner felt a surge of hope, real hope. The device, their final weapon, was in their hands, and they were about to escape with it. The team had fought through hell, but now, they had a chance to fight back. The end was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, they could see a glimmer of victory. The battle had brought humanity to the edge of extinction. Earth was on the brink of being overrun by the AI forces, and every moment felt like it could be their last. But Bonner and his team had defied the odds. They had infiltrated the heart of the AI fleet, hidden deep within space, and now they stood at the threshold of the final confrontation. The command center, the heart of the AI's control, lay just ahead. The fate of Earth depended on what would happen next. The team had been through hell, intense battles, losses, and pain. But now, they were stronger. The AI hacking device, the hope they had fought so hard to secure, was in their hands. But they knew that even with this powerful weapon, the final assault would be the toughest challenge yet. Bonner gathered his team in the dark, silent command room of their ship. His voice was steady, but the weight of the moment was heavy on his shoulders. This is it. We have one chance. One shot. We've come this far, and we can't back down now. The AI command center is just ahead. We'll fight our way through and make sure we take down their leadership. Once that happens, their forces will crumble. The soldiers nodded, the resolve in their eyes clear. They had lost so much, so many comrades, so much of the world, but they were ready to finish what they had started. This was their final mission. The moment that would define their future. Bonner looked around at the team, each of them strong in their own way. Marcus, his closest friend, had already sacrificed so much. Henry, the sharpshooter with an unshakable focus. And Sarah, the quiet but fierce fighter who had already proven herself time and time again. Each of them had their own reasons to fight, their own drive to protect humanity. And now, they would face their greatest challenge together. "Let's do this," Bonner said, his voice calm but filled with determination. The team suited up, securing their weapons and equipment. It was time. The journey to the AI command center wasn't easy. The massive AI fleet was bristling with weapons, and every corner seemed to hide an enemy waiting to strike. The ship's crew had to move with precision, avoiding patrols and taking out any guards in their way. The mission was delicate: one wrong move, one missed opportunity, and it could all come crashing down. As they moved closer to the command center, the tension built. Bonner's heart raced in his chest. Every step brought them closer to the moment that could change everything. They were close, but the AI forces were also closing in, aware of the threat that the humans posed. Bonner activated his cloaking device, a shimmer of invisibility covering his team as they silently moved through the AI stronghold. The technology they had was cutting edge, but the AI's defenses were just as advanced. The faint hum of machinery and the mechanical whir of AI drones filled the air. Each step was calculated, each move deliberate. They couldn't afford any mistakes. The final assault was underway, and the closer they got to the heart of the command center, the fiercer the resistance became. AI robots, towering and menacing, were patrolling every hall. Their movements were fast, precise, and deadly. But Bonner's team was quick, too. The soldiers used their cloaking devices and speed to stay out of sight, striking when necessary and moving on before the enemy had a chance to react. Then, it all changed. They reached the final door, the entry to the AI command center, and a massive blast shook the walls. The alarms blared, and the AI forces had finally detected them. There was no more hiding. The final battle was about to begin. Bonner's heart pounded as he signaled his team to get ready. This is it. Everyone, move out. The door slid open, and chaos erupted. The AI command center was a massive room, filled with advanced technology and computers. At the far end, a group of AI leaders stood, surrounded by their robotic bodyguards. Bonner's team charged in, weapons raised, ready to end the war. Laser weapons fired from both sides as Bonner led the charge, his team following close behind. The air crackled with energy as the soldiers and robots clashed, the sound of lasers and metal ringing in their ears. Bonner's team fought with everything they had. They used everything at their disposal, cloaking devices to move undetected, EMP blasts to disable the AI's systems, and their own high-tech weapons to cut down any enemy in their path. It was a fight like no other. Bonner and his team weaved through the chaos, taking down one AI after another. The robots were relentless, but so were the humans. Each time they cut down one opponent, another took its place. Bonner's heart was racing. This was the fight of their lives. But in the heat of battle, something tragic happened. As Bonner moved forward, a massive AI mech swung its arm toward Sarah. She saw it coming just in time and pushed her teammates out of the way. The mech's massive fist collided with her, sending her flying across the room. The force of the blow was enough to crush anything in its path. Bonner's heart sank as he turned to see Sarah's motionless body lying on the cold floor. A fierce anger rose within him, but he quickly pushed it aside. He couldn't let grief take over now. Sarah's sacrifice would not be in vain. He fought with renewed intensity, his mind focused on the mission. They had come too far. There was no turning back now. The battle raged on, but Bonner and his team pressed forward. The AI command center was just ahead, and they had no time to waste. Bonner and Marcus worked together to disable the AI's defenses, while Henry picked off the enemy from a distance, taking out key targets with precision. Finally, they reached the AI leaders. Bonner activated the AI hacking device, the small, seemingly simple object that held the fate of humanity in its hands. The device hummed to life, sending waves of energy through the command center. The AI systems began to glitch, their once perfect commands faltering. The AI leaders screamed in panic as their control over the fleet began to crumble. The powerful robots that had once served them faltered, their movements slow and uncoordinated. Bonner's team knew this was their chance. Now! Bonner shouted. Finish them! With a final push, Bonner and his team took down the remaining AI forces. The command center was theirs. The fight was over. But the cost had been high. They had won, but at a great price. Sarah was gone, and so many others had fallen along the way. Bonner stood over the AI leaders, his chest heavy with the weight of their victory. The war was over, but the scars would remain. Humanity had fought back. They had reclaimed their future. And though they had lost so much, they had won the most important battle of all. The final battle was raging, and the fate of humanity was hanging by a thread. Bonner and his team had pushed their way to the heart of the AI's main control center, but their path was anything but easy. The AI forces were relentless, and the human resistance was down to its last few soldiers. The battle had taken its toll. The once vibrant world was now a war-torn wasteland. Cities lay in ruins, and the sky was filled with the smoke of destruction. Yet, amidst all the chaos and loss, there was still hope. Humanity had not given up, and neither had Bonner and his team. Bonner's heart raced as he and his team stormed the AI's central command room. They had fought through countless enemies, survived brutal assaults, and watched many of their comrades fall along the way. But now, they were so close. The AI's main control system, the heart of their power, was just ahead. This was it, the final move that could change everything. The room they entered was massive, cold, and sterile, filled with towering walls of digital screens and machines. At the far end stood the AI's control hub, a gigantic, pulsating core surrounded by a labyrinth of machinery. This was the brain of the entire AI network, the source of their power, and the key to humanity's survival. But the room was not empty. The AI had anticipated their move. Dozens of towering mechs and robotic soldiers filled the space, their red eyes glowing menacingly. "Prepare yourselves," Bonner shouted to his team as they spread out, taking positions behind cover. The atmosphere was thick with tension. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, but it was also the moment that would decide everything. The last stand. The AI forces attacked immediately. They moved with terrifying precision, firing laser weapons and launching drones into the air. Bonner's team responded just as quickly, unleashing their own firepower. The sound of gunfire and explosions filled the air as robots and soldiers clashed in an all-out war. The room became a battlefield, the chaos unimaginable. Yet, Bonner's focus remained steady. He knew the outcome of this battle would determine the future of humanity. "Get to the control core," Bonner ordered. The team advanced, fighting through the relentless swarm of AI enemies. Every step felt like a lifetime. For every robot they took down, 2 more seemed to appear. But they didn't back down. They couldn't. Bonner's heart was heavy with the weight of his decisions. He had watched many of his soldiers fall, Marcus, Sarah, Henry, all brave warriors who had sacrificed everything for this moment. They had given their lives so that humanity might have a chance at survival. He couldn't let their sacrifice be in vain. As they neared the control center, the intensity of the battle escalated. One of Bonner's soldiers, Greg, was hit by a powerful blast from an AI mech. He fell to the ground, blood streaming from his wounds. Bonner ran to his side, but Greg's eyes were already closing. You have to win this," Greg whispered, his voice weak. "For all of us, for Earth." With those final words, Greg passed away, leaving Bonner with a renewed sense of purpose. He couldn't let Greg's death be the end. They were so close. Humanity had come too far to lose now. Bonner looked up at the AI control core, a massive, glowing sphere surrounded by a field of energy. It was protected by a barrier that seemed impenetrable. The team had to find a way to break through. They couldn't afford to waste any more time. The AI forces were closing in, and the pressure was mounting. Bonner's mind raced. There was no time left for hesitation. He activated the AI hacking device they had secured earlier, the device that could disrupt the AI's systems. But the device needed a direct connection to the control core, and it had to be planted manually. "Cover me!" Bonner shouted. He dashed forward, running toward the core with everything he had left. His team followed him, laying down cover fire to keep the AI's forces at bay. The closer Bonner got to the core, the more intense the battle became. Every second felt like an eternity. The energy field around the core flickered, and Bonner knew this was his moment. He dove into the heart of the field, his hand reaching for the connection point. The AI's automated defenses tried to stop him, but Bonner fought through them, his heart pounding in his chest. Finally, with a single, desperate motion, Bonner connected the device to the control core. A surge of energy shot through the room, and the AI's systems began to glitch. The once perfect order of the machines faltered. The AI's network was beginning to unravel. The robotic soldiers paused for a moment, their movements becoming erratic and confused. The control that the AI once held over them was slipping away. But the AI wasn't going down without a fight. As Bonner stepped back, the room shook violently. The energy field around the core began to pulse dangerously, and the AI's remaining forces turned their attention on Bonner. They launched a final, desperate assault. Bonner's team held their ground. They fought with everything they had, their bodies aching, their energy draining. The AI's forces came at them like an unstoppable tide, but Bonner's soldiers pushed back, refusing to let them win. Then, in a moment of sheer desperation, the AI's last remaining mech, a massive behemoth of metal and weapons, charged at Bonner. It was the final, all-or-nothing attack. Bonner knew this would be his last chance to stop the AI once and for all. With no time to think, Bonner made a split-second decision. He activated the last of their EMP charges, throwing it directly at the mech. The explosion was deafening, sending a shockwave through the room. The mech systems failed instantly, its giant frame crashing to the ground with a thunderous roar. The AI forces were no longer coordinated. Their robots faltered, their machines grinding to a halt. The control core, once a symbol of the AI's dominance, began to implode. Sparks flew from every corner of the room as the AI's control over the planet collapsed. The tide had finally turned in humanity's favor. Bonner stood there, his body battered, his mind exhausted. The battle was over. The war was won. But the cost had been high. As the dust settled, Bonner looked around at the survivors, his team. They had made it. But the victory was bittersweet. So many had fallen, so many lives lost in the fight. Greg, Sarah, Henry, and the others had given everything to protect the future of Earth. Their sacrifice would never be forgotten. Bonner stood over the wreckage of the AI control center, his heart heavy with the weight of the losses they had endured. The world was free, but the scars of the war would remain forever. Humanity had stood up against the most powerful force in the universe, and they had won. It wasn't just a victory over the machines. It was a victory for every person who had ever fought for freedom, for every soldier who had laid down their life in the name of a better future. As Bonner looked out over the wreckage of the battlefield, he knew that this was only the beginning. The war was over, but the world they had fought for was just starting to rebuild. And humanity would rise again, stronger, united, and free.